Call an ambulance, quick. How can you be so oblivious? Suddenly, Brittany, who lives next door, rushed into my apartment in a panic. It all started when Tony collapsed in the bathroom. Lately, Tony never parts with his mobile phone, no matter where he is in the house. In fact, he even takes it to the bathroom, apparently talking to someone. Why she, living next door, knew in real time that he had collapsed in the bathroom is beyond me. Honestly, there's no reason for her to call me oblivious. I already know why she is connected to him, and how she knew immediately about his collapse in the bathroom. They might think it's a secret, but there have been many suspicious moments in the past. It's funny they don't realize that they're the only ones who don't notice. I've turned a blind eye until now, but I've decided to put a stop to it. They've been having their way, thinking I've been silently watching. Of course, I plan to retaliate against Tony, but I also want Brittany to suffer just like me. They shouldn't think they can get away with this. It's time for them to pay for 13 years of betrayal. I'm Rosetta, a 40-year-old housewife. I met my husband Tony through a mutual acquaintance. At my age, I long to marry and build a warm home. A friend suggested I meet Tony, saying it wouldn't hurt just to meet. I was all work and no play, with no chances to meet anyone. Watching my friends get married, I wondered what life with someone I loved would be like. Thinking it was just a meeting, I said yes, only to find an unexpectedly great connection. Our hobbies and topics of conversation matched, and our conversational pace and rhythm felt incredibly comfortable. It was as if we had met before, and I wanted to see him again. I had dated a few men before, but none with whom I could talk so freely. My first impression of Tony was of a caring man, always putting me first. I quickly fell for his ever-present kindness. Rosetta, I thought this would suit you. What's this? It's not my birthday or our anniversary. Can I open it? Please do. Inside the box he handed me was a beautiful lemon yellow dress. It's lovely. I've never worn a dress like this. I wonder if it suits me. It's definitely going to suit you, Rosetta. I want to see you in it here. Here? I'm a bit nervous. I quickly tried on the dress. Yeah. The size is just right. It suits you as I thought. I'm happy. Thank you. He nodded with satisfaction as he looked at me. Though kind to me, I sometimes caught a glimpse of his stern side. It was mostly during work-related calls. Even on dates, he'd occasionally receive calls and issue instructions. I'd find myself admiring his commanding presence. He, a manager, seemed to be always busy, even on his days off. It must be tough getting work calls even on your day off. Well, it's not too bad. But it can be tough dealing with incompetent subordinates. Oh, we should head out. Our restaurant reservation is coming up. Laughing, we hand in hand, hurried to the restaurant we had reserved. I wanted to marry a wonderful woman like you. Will you marry me? If it's with you, I'd be happy to. Please take care of me from now on. I felt happy to be able to marry him. But this happiness, I soon realized, was fleeting. I intended to continue working as a nurse even after getting married. But things seemed to be heading in a bad direction. About the housework. I plan to continue working, even though we're married. Is it okay to ask you to help when I have night shifts? His expression then turned grim. You intend to continue working? Yes, is that a problem? It's a bit, not right for a woman to keep working after marriage. Nowadays, it's not uncommon for couples to be dual income. In reality, there are more households around me where both partners are working hard as dual income couples than those with just a housewife. Even after hearing my reasoning, he insisted I should quit working after marriage, so I asked him why. I thought there must be some reason from his perspective. Believing it's important for spouses to understand and compromise with each other, I decided to ask. Ever since college days, I've been coming back to a dark room and turning on the light alone. Tony, you've lived alone for a long time since college, right? The moment the room lights up and I realize I'm alone, I just hate that feeling. His expression seemed to darken for a moment. So that's how you felt. I lived with my family for a long time, but I guess living alone can make you feel that way. That's why I want you, Rosetta, to quit your full-time job. Of course, I'll work in your place. There's even talk of me becoming a director soon. Really? A promotion at this time? That's amazing. Then, scratching the tip of his nose awkwardly, he replied. Whenever he feels shy about something, he fiddles with his nose and breathes heavily. He looked at me as if expecting more praise, so he must have been really happy. He always prioritized career advancement, working hard to be recognized at work, so this honor must mean a lot to him. It's not a big deal for someone like me. But there are only a few among my peers who have become managers, so I guess my progress is relatively fast. Proudly saying this, I felt a hesitation beside him. Sensing my indecision, he leaned in and said, "You're not going to cling to your job when I, your husband, am asking you this humbly, right?" I was speechless at his expression, one I had never seen before. It was unbelievable, and instinctively, I felt I shouldn't meet his eyes anymore, a strange sensation. Being told this, I felt I had no choice but to quit. I wanted to continue a bit longer, but I decided to resign, considering it was my beloved husband's request. Life as a housewife, starting with our marriage, was harder than I expected. I thought being a housewife meant doing household chores, but it was extremely busy. Taking advantage of me being a housewife, Tony stopped doing any housework. Women's workplace is like the home, right? It's wrong to just rush through work to have your own free time. I couldn't talk back to him when he said this in a stern tone. In the morning, I prepared breakfast and helped him get ready for work, timing it with when he woke up. Until he returned at night, I finished all chores like preparing dinner and cleaning the bathroom. "Tony, breakfast's ready." "I'll be right there." He sat down at the table, looking around leisurely and sighed deeply. "You know I went out for a work-related drink last night, right?" "Yes, I thought so since you came back late." "What about it?" "If I went out for drinks, shouldn't the breakfast be Eggs Benedict?" "I'm sorry, I didn't consider that." Then he, tapping his finger on the table, silently glared at me. He was particular and would strongly point out anything that differed even slightly from his preferences. "Hey, is this where the vase was supposed to be?" A normal vase placed beside the TV stand. I bought it thinking it would add a nice touch to the home since he likes flowers. I haven't decided exactly where to place the vase, but I wonder if something went wrong. "The vase?" I moved it a bit since it was blocking the TV view. Tony clicked his tongue and glared at me. "With this angle, it blocks the view of the painting from my seat. A masterpiece obscured by flowers, what were you thinking? So selfish to prioritize watching TV." "I didn't mean to." "I'm sorry." Try to understand the feelings of a man who's dealing with such a selfish woman. He kept blaming me relentlessly. Hearing how inadequate I was, I started to strongly believe I was a terrible person. "Rosetta, you've always lived at home and only worked as a nurse, so you might not understand, but society isn't so kind, you know? Being limited to the medical world like that." When he said this, I started to feel anxious, wondering if my narrow perspective was causing him discomfort. "You say you're a doctor or nurse, but in the end, you only know a narrow world, don't you?" "Yes, I suppose." "I've been working at the same company for 30 years since graduating from college, so I'm good at sensing these things. I'll teach you, so be sure to pay attention." Honestly, I felt that continuing as a nurse would have been far better. His relentless sarcasm often lasts for 2 to 3 hours. Showing any sign of displeasure means starting all over again with the lectures, so I'm not even allowed to look upset. I focused solely on giving answers that would satisfy him or nodding as if I were listening. While it's possible to ignore Tony's sarcasm, there's another issue that's been bothering me for a while. Brittany, our next-door neighbor. She seems to be a successful influencer, and her voice can be heard every night during her broadcasts. Despite living in a well-insulated condominium, the sound leaks through, indicating she must be playing at a very high volume. I've been troubled by this noise since moving in 13 years ago and have complained 2 or 3 times. Remembering those times still makes me angry. Since those complaints, it seems I've been marked as an enemy in her eyes. Every time we pass each other, she clicks her tongue at me. Although it's a regular occurrence, it's still unpleasant to experience every night. Don't you know what kind of person the neighbor is? He looked at me sharply when I asked. Is there a problem with the neighbor? I hope it's not trouble with them. No, it's not trouble, but the noise. I was wondering if there's something we could do about it. I don't think it's a big deal. Just don't confront the neighbor directly, okay? Saying that, he ended the conversation and drank his beer. I haven't brought it up since. Tony often comes home late at night due to his busy work schedule. I try to wait up for him, but sometimes I fall asleep. One night, I thought I heard Tony's voice and tried to get up, thinking he was home, but I was too sleepy. I needed to get up quickly to avoid making him angry. However, when I got up, I couldn't see him anywhere. Huh? Didn't he come home? I could hear Tony's voice, but where was it coming from? Listening closely. It seemed to be coming from next door. It also sounded like he was talking to someone, but was he talking to Brittany? Why would his voice be coming from Brittany's apartment at 1 a.m.? Feeling uneasy, I decided to use some savings I had hidden away from my working days to hire a detective. I never thought I'd be the one to hire a detective. What the detective found was unexpected. However, I still felt it wasn't the right time to confront Tony with this evidence. As the year-end approached, I had a bad feeling. With the long holiday break around the corner and the unpredictability of what might happen on the last day of work before then, I felt a bit heavy. That year-end, Tony came home a bit early from his last day of work before the long holiday, seemingly in a good mood. He had been drinking and was more relaxed than usual. Lately, he'd been irritable and taking it out on me, so this was a bit of a relief. Welcome home, Tony. You're home early today. Yeah, it's the day before the break, so I had a few drinks with colleagues. I see. Must have been tiring. Looking at the fridge, he asked for more alcohol. Hey, I'm not done drinking. Get me something. It was a good thing that he was in a good mood, but his face was clearly flushed from drinking too much. Your face is all red. Haven't you drunk a bit much? Drunk too much? Are you saying I can't hold my liquor? Alcohol is essential for office workers. I'm not weak to it. Saying that, he quickly drank the beer he was holding. He doesn't particularly like beer. He used to boast about how well he could drink, but I've had to pick him up from bars countless times. Despite his grand claims about being a corporate drinker, I always end up taking care of him when he's drunk. Man, I've sweated a lot drinking tonight. I'll take a quick shower before bed. Saying this, he took his mobile phone to the bathroom. He never used to bring his mobile phone to the bathroom, but lately, he doesn't let it out of his sight, even there. He even takes it with him to the bathroom, which makes me wonder if there's something he desperately doesn't want seen. Thinking about this, I decided to keep an eye on the situation. From the bathroom where he went, I could hear him talking on the phone. The conversation was too quiet to make out, but I wondered what could be so important to discuss in the bathroom. Then, a loud noise came from the bathroom. Shocked, I rushed there and found Tony, looking pained, curled up in the bathtub. Just as he regained consciousness and tried to get out, he collapsed again, unconscious. I quickly checked his condition. At that moment, someone was furiously banging on the door. The banging was so intense, I thought the door might break. It's a rental, and having someone break the door isn't exactly a laughing matter. And who could it be at such a critical time? Yes, I'm a bit busy right now. When I opened the door, it was Brittany. Move! Get out of the way! I couldn't comprehend why she would show up right now. She pushed past me, making a beeline for the bathroom without any hesitation. Wait! What are you doing? Tony, what's wrong? Tony! Ignoring my astonishment, she took charge of the situation. She acted as if she were the wife, which was bizarre. Call an ambulance, quick! How can you be so oblivious? I couldn't let her continue her reckless behavior. There was only one thing to do: confront her with reality. I just stood there, looking down on them. Call an ambulance? And you think you have the right to order me around? What do you mean? Just what I said. Do you think you, of all people, have the right to give orders to me, his wife? She seemed taken aback by my retort. As if it was unthinkable for me to talk back. If you're so concerned, why don't you call the ambulance? No, I can't, that's why I'm asking you. Think a little, will you? Suddenly she got angry and objected. I guess so. She snapped back angrily, obviously because it would be embarrassing for her as the mistress to have stormed into the house in a panic. She's probably afraid of a call revealing the affair. She's flustered to make a call, just staring at Tony lying there. I couldn't help but laugh. You can't even make a phone call? That's just pathetic. My words seemed to anger her. What do you mean, pathetic? Are you mocking our pure love? Her belief in their pure love, despite being just an affair, was terrifying. Focused solely on themselves, their blindness was almost enviable, but this wasn't the time for that. If you're really concerned about him, making a call should be easy. You should be able to do it. I challenged her to make the call, showing her the phone. If she really could, there should be no problem. Furious, she glared at me, her face red with anger. Tony seemed to regain consciousness from our voices. He was unconscious, and even when he woke up, he still seemed to be in a lot of pain. He was still in pain, struggling to speak. My head hurts like it's splitting. Call an ambulance. He looked extremely pained, his usual composed expression gone. I remarked. It must be hard. We really should call an ambulance, shouldn't we? What are you waiting for? Do it now. Right. Something needs to be done quickly. Ignoring his words, I decided to take action. Leaving him rolling in agony, I silently left the house. I took the waterproof-packed mobile phone that had fallen in the bathroom, so he couldn't call from his phone. Brittany and Tony, now awake, seemed relieved and were leisurely affirming their love for each other. Blind to everything but themselves, they didn't even notice I took the phone. I couldn't deal with this foolish, cheating couple any longer. Seizing the opportunity, I decided to leave the house. I immediately left the house and contacted Brittany's boyfriend, Robert. Robert is Brittany's boyfriend, with whom she has a relationship serious enough to consider marriage. He stays over about half the week, so they're practically cohabitating. I've run into him a few times in the hallway and at the garbage disposal area. He's a doctor working at a nearby hospital. I remembered receiving his business card before. Good evening. Sorry for calling so late. It seems Brittany is at my place for some reason. Could you come and pick her up? Is this Rosetta? Long time no see. You're saying Brittany is at your place? What do you mean by that? His voice over the phone sounded confused. Understandably so. Anyone would be surprised by a sudden night call from their girlfriend's neighbor. I'll explain the details later. Are you at work right now? No, I've just finished work and am killing time at a restaurant near the workplace. Brittany said she had a stream tonight and asked me to come back late. So, Brittany had been making sure not to let Robert stay at her place. She was casually talking to Tony over the phone while Robert was away. Can you come as soon as possible? I'll head over right away. Let's meet at the condominium entrance. Thank you. I'll join you there. 3 minutes after the call, he arrived at the condo's entrance, and we went to my apartment together. On the way, I briefly explained the situation. To put it bluntly, it seems Brittany and my husband Tony have been having an affair for many years. What? What do you mean? I found out through investigation. They met in a service store 13 years ago and have been involved ever since. Robert was visibly shocked by my words. 13 years? Since that long ago? Yes. She moved into the apartment next to ours by chance 2 years ago. No way. Then what am I? I thought we were going to get married. He was struggling to come to terms with the reality of being cheated on. It would be so understandable, considering his marriage plans. It seems to be for money. I suspected my husband's infidelity and hired a detective. The investigation results indicated that. That's unbelievable. Brittany rushed into our apartment when Tony collapsed in the bath. Apparently, they were talking on the phone even in the bathroom. He seemed deep in thought but then looked at me. That explains it. No wonder she never lets go of her phone. But you said Tony collapsed. Is he all right? He's fine, just drank too much. No danger to his life. After explaining briefly, I led him to my apartment. Entering quietly, they were still engrossed in their melodramatic scene. I'll fight against the world for you, Tony. Having such a beautiful woman love me, I'm blessed. This must be a trial from God to reach true love. In the 10 minutes it took me to leave, contact Robert. Within the short time, an epic story seemed to have unfolded. A tragic tale of lovers who can't swear eternal love to each other. I was surprised Tony could spout such cheesy lines. Glancing at Robert beside me, he looked indescribable, seemingly shaking from the cringeworthy dialogue. Unable to bear it any longer, Robert dropped his bag, alerting them to our presence. What's going on here? Robert, why are you here? Strangely, both were naked, which was comical. Why? That should be my line. You told me not to come home early because of a stream. Was it for this? Normally mild-mannered Robert raised his voice, and Brittany seemed a bit taken aback. Well, that's because, the fans and antis are troublesome. I was worried about what would happen if they found out I have a boyfriend. Brittany looked evasive. I knew Robert only from brief exchanges in the apartment complex. He never seemed like someone who would raise his voice. Indeed, he listened calmly when I explained everything to him earlier, showing his ability to control his emotions. So, for Robert to react this strongly, she must have really crossed a line. Stop taking people for fools. To think you've been secretly having an affair with the neighbor for 13 years. She suddenly became defensive, her eyes darting around. I thought maybe I'd marry Robert. Is that bad? She tried to look innocent and appealing, but it only backfired with Robert. We were cohabitating because we talked about marriage someday, but now I just can't believe you. Brittany, realizing Robert was genuinely angry, quickly switched tactics. No, this is a misunderstanding. I was just teaching him about streaming, like personal training for the digital age. Brittany seemed to think we knew nothing about influencers or video streaming, and was clearly trying to bluff her way through. Despite her desperate attempts to wriggle out of the situation, Robert wasn't having any of it. Private lessons, is that it? Have you already forgotten what you yourself said earlier? I played the cheesy dialogue I had secretly recorded at high volume. Hey! You recorded this without me knowing? That's a violation of privacy. Delete it now. Privacy? You have no right to talk about privacy. I'm filing for divorce. Tony, clearly not expecting me to initiate a divorce, was panicking. Divorce? How are you going to live without me? You're living off me, and now you're talking about divorce? Have you lost your mind? He seemed to think I would break down and beg him. His male superiority mindset was apparent, still in disbelief over the current situation. His absolute confidence baffled me, but it didn't matter anymore. Say whatever you want. You can only act tough for so long. Eventually, we got divorced. After the incident, I immediately sought a lawyer who is an expert in divorce and infidelity cases. Presenting the evidence video helped me demand more than the usual alimony. Meanwhile, Brittany's engagement with Robert was called off, and she now lives a secluded life. This is partly because her streaming blew up after the affair scandal. Right after the infidelity news broke, fans analyzed Brittany's posts, exposing her relationship with Tony. The fan's sharp eyes discerned details from subtle reflections and background elements in her posts. The posts and their hints led to the discovery of her affair with him. The scandal affected Tony too. His company received numerous calls, forcing them to acknowledge the situation. He was fired, for his company took the situation seriously. The company must have wanted to get rid of the trouble. I guess so. After all, a high-profile influencer's affair with a married corporate employee from major enterprise was criticized heavily. When the company's stock dipped around the time of the scandal, they couldn't ignore it any longer. Now, he struggles with the public's disdain and rarely goes out, a consequence of his own actions. He's often the subject of online posts, making it risky for him to venture outside. I ran into Brittany once after the turmoil. She appeared as if waiting for me while I shopped at a grocery store near my workplace. "How come you're living comfortably off a big settlement while I suffer? Isn't that unfair?" Her audacity was typical. "There's nothing unfair about it. It's all the result of your actions. I have nothing to say to you." "And what's with your high and mighty attitude? Because of you, my engagement was broken off." She approached me, growing more agitated. "I was so close to marrying a doctor. Just stop it, will you? You've been secretly having an affair while engaged, and yet you're playing the victim. I can't understand your logic. You should mind your behavior. What do you know? You're the one who's the talk of the internet now. If someone sees this, it'll end up online again." Realizing the risk, Brittany quickly covered herself with her hood and left in a hurry. Since separating from Tony, I've been enjoying my single life. Living at my own pace is wonderful. I've returned to my nursing job, surprisingly recalling much of my previous knowledge. Surprisingly, my body seems to remember, and I am able to do a certain amount of things. Though I once doubted my future, I now live a fulfilling life, forgetting Tony and Brittany as my form of revenge. "Get out of the way, you're blocking the pregnant lady," Abigail said, gently stroking her belly. Her face held a mean-spirited expression that made you wonder, shouldn't pregnant women have a more gentle demeanor? I looked over at my husband, Daniel. "Go sleep in the storage room," he chimed in, echoing Abigail. Watching Daniel side with Abigail, my love for him cooled off. Yet, a part of me still felt a pang of sadness. "All right then," I replied. Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail gazed back at him, utterly smitten. The sight of them together washed away my melancholy, replacing it with a rising anger from within. "I'll be out by tomorrow." Sure. "Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight?" "This is mine and Abigail's house now," Daniel said, elated. I nodded slightly and left the house. They won't be laughing for long. Leaving the house, I allowed myself a smile, imagining what comes next. My name is Grace. A 46-year-old housewife. Before marriage, I worked hard, but that was over 20 years ago. Now, I enjoy my days doing household chores and savoring coffee, just an ordinary middle-aged lady. My hobby is investing, which I've done since before I got married, recently enjoying significant dividends that allow for luxury hotel lunches and spa visits. Daniel, 43, is a salesman for a major company. He's definitely put on some weight, and honestly, his scent has become rather strong recently, but as a salesman at the top of his game, he sure has a way with words. Despite looking like a big, burly guy, I've always loved him. I've thought about encouraging him to lose some weight for his health, but there's a certain adorable quality to him that made me think maybe it wasn't necessary. We have a daughter together, Scarlett. Scarlett has inherited Daniel's facial features, and being slim, she has the beauty of a model. Not just in looks, but academically and athletically, she excels, bringing home top grades and being selected for national competitions, all while being humble and hardworking. Both Daniel and I dote on her, often to the point where others say we're overprotective. Daniel has a bit of a weakness for younger women, but he chose me, an older woman, and has always prioritized our family, so I've come to accept his occasional wandering eye. We lived in a second-hand apartment bought around the time Scarlett was born, which has been aging, leading to discussions about increasing the maintenance fees. Amidst this, Scarlett decided to do room sharing near her university. At the same time, my relatives offered us an uninhabited house to inherit, prompting Daniel and me to decide on rebuilding it and moving in. Little did I know that this move would lead to such a turn of events with Daniel. While our old apartment had 4 rooms, our new home has only 2. It's smaller than before, but designing it as a single-story home considering our elder years has made it very comfortable. One of the 2 rooms, a combined study and guest room, can be divided into Scarlett's room and a study, making 3 rooms if she comes back. Since moving, Daniel's nights have become late due to work engagements, and he often finds excuses to go out on weekends. Being sensitive to smells, sleeping next to Daniel, who reeks of alcohol and tobacco, has been a challenge even with separate beds. Thus, despite having a shared bedroom, I've been sleeping in the study since we moved into the new house. When it came time to send out moving announcements, I took the initiative, sending letters far and wide. Daniel isn't great with these sorts of things, so I handled sending letters to the in-laws' house and his relatives on his behalf. Since both my parents have passed away, I only sent brief notices to relatives and friends on my mom's side. I haven't kept in touch with anyone from my dad's side of the family. And that's largely due to my sister, Abigail. Abigail is my half-sister, 14 years younger than me. She was born to my dad's second wife shortly after my mom died when I was in my first year of middle school. Abigail was already 2 years old when they remarried, so I initially thought it was a marriage where both parties already had children. My dad passed away in an accident along with his second wife about 5 years after they got remarried. At the funeral, relatives on my dad's side mentioned that he and his second wife had been childhood sweethearts, and everyone had expected them to marry. They blamed my mom for coming between them, saying she proposed marriage through her company connections, leaving no choice for my dad but to marry her, casting his second wife into the shadows. Despite my memories of my parents being happy, it turns out my dad had a child with his second wife behind the scenes. That revelation shocked me more than anything. At the relative's house, Abigail's favorite foods were always served. She wore brand clothes, had the biggest room to herself, and was taken to any place she wanted immediately. In contrast, I was burdened with preparing meals, doing laundry, cleaning, had my part-time earnings taken away, and my room was a small storage space under the stairs, where I was begrudgingly provided with the bare minimum after asking. By the time Abigail reached the middle grades of elementary school, she had learned about my mom from relatives and had come to look down on me. I had to juggle multiple part-time jobs to finally move out of that house. With such experiences, it's no wonder I harbored no fond feelings for Abigail, and I hadn't told her about my marriage or having a child. A few weeks after moving in, I was enjoying a coffee when the doorbell rang. A man's voice said, "Delivery." The screen showed someone looking down. Wondering if Daniel had ordered something, I opened the door. And I was surprised by the person who was there. "Abigail? What are you doing here?" "It's been a while, sis. I just showed up." The person in front of me was indeed wearing the hat seen on the doorbell camera, but it wasn't a delivery person, it was my sister, Abigail. Abigail slipped past me, frozen in shock, and made herself comfortable on the sofa in the living room. I hurried after her and stood towering in front of her, looking down. "If you knew it was me, you wouldn't let me in, right? That's why I used a recorded voice from before. That's awful, deceiving me like that. Oh, scary." Abigail feigned fear at my raised voice. But it was clear she was acting, evidenced by her smiling face. "I've come back home." "What?" Confused by Abigail's nonsensical remark, I responded coldly. With a bright smile, Abigail began to explain her sudden visit. "Well, you never tell me where you are. I got married, but my husband's always on business trips, and it's boring. And when you get pregnant, it becomes harder to move around, right? Everyone said I should come and have you take care of me. Go back. I have no intention of dealing with you, let alone take care of you. But I've already come here planning to have you look after me, so it's impossible." I was frustrated with Abigail's unapologetic attitude. Hearing her mutter, "Thief's daughter," under her breath, my anger reached its peak. "Get out! I never want to see your face again." "What's all the noise about?" "It can be heard from outside." "Daniel, Surprised by Daniel's unexpected return, I was at a loss for words when Abigail stood up and went over to him. Then she wrapped her arm around Daniel's. Daniel didn't shrug her off and seemed pleased with her presence. "Oh, Abigail's here? Welcome." "Daniel, Sis is being mean. I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to stay with Daniel until the baby is born, but is that not okay?" "That's great. If you don't mind, you're welcome to stay as long as you like." I was stunned by the conversation between Daniel and Abigail. Not only that, but Abigail was clinging to Daniel, their proximity resembling that of lovers. "Daniel, what's this all about?" "You see, Abigail's had it tough, hasn't she?" "Why be so harsh? Jealous of your cute sister?" I felt despair at Daniel's words. I had told Daniel about my family situation before we got married. Yet, he said such things. "Look, you're not using your bed in the bedroom anyway, so it should be fine, right?" "Really? I can sleep in the same room with you, Daniel?" "Sleeping next to you sounds like it'd bring sweet dreams." "Daniel, really?" Their conversation, like that of a close couple, gave me a headache. Ignoring me, the two of them went to the bedroom, still arm in arm, to put away their luggage. However, when they didn't return after a few minutes, a bad feeling led me to peek into the bedroom. There, I found them embracing each other. "Living with you feels like a dream come true. The baby's happy, too. To live with Dad." Abigail's words filled me with despair. "Daniel is Dad? What does that mean?" Daniel, looking pleased, nodded while embracing Abigail. "We should leave the sister to babysit and go on a date." "She's only good for that." I watched them kiss through the tears, peeking through the door gap. From that day on, they treated me like a housekeeper. While obeying them, I began to gather evidence little by little. I discovered more shocking truths about our household, leading me to consider divorce. One day, Abigail, sitting on my favorite sofa, summoned me. She spoke as if she owned the place. "Get out of the way, I'm pregnant," Abigail said, gently rubbing her belly. "Shouldn't pregnant women look more compassionate?" Abigail's face was filled with malice. I looked at Daniel. "You should sleep in the warehouse," he said, agreeing with Abigail. Seeing Daniel side with her, my love faded. Still, I felt a bit sentimental. "All right then." Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail looked at Daniel adoringly. At that moment, my sentimental feelings vanished, replaced by anger from the bottom of my heart. "I'll be out by tomorrow." Yeah. Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight? This place is now mine and Abigail's." I nodded slightly and left the house, thinking they won't be laughing for long. After leaving, I smiled, imagining what comes next. I stayed in a hotel, planning my next steps. I arranged for movers to come the next day and planned to go to the office early before heading home. Excited about the future, I had trouble falling asleep that night, but feeling liberated, my heart felt lighter. The next day, I went as planned to get the divorce papers and headed home. The movers were already there, looking confused. They said the house was empty when they arrived, with just one cardboard box left at the entrance. At the entrance was indeed a small cardboard box with a note saying, "Please take whatever you want." Inside were my treasured books and cosmetics tossed carelessly, with books damaged and pages torn. At the very back was Daniel's wedding ring, fueling my rage. Entering the house, I found the bedroom in disarray with sheets, pajamas, and underwear scattered about, making it clear what had happened after I left. "Please take all of these items," I said, closing the bedroom door and leading the movers to the study. Daniel doesn't read, so the study was filled with books collected by me and Scarlett. Since I only had a few outfits to begin with, I decided to take this opportunity to buy new ones. When I entered the living room, I found a letter on the dining table. The letter mentioned that Daniel and his companion were going on a prenatal trip abroad for 5 nights and 6 days. It instructed me to keep the house clean during their absence and to prepare for the divorce immediately upon their return. I was dumbfounded by their selfishness. However, this made my plan much easier to execute, so I secretly thanked them in my heart. After having the movers take all my belongings, I removed my wedding ring and left it in the kitchen. Leaving the ring behind, I exited my home. I debated over where to move but ended up buying a place near Scarlett's university that happened to be for sale. The new house was very comfortable, and I enjoyed my solitude for the first time in a while. On the day of their return, my mobile phone kept ringing incessantly. I knew who it was without even looking at the screen. Without diverting my eyes from the book I was reading, I answered the call. "Yes, yes. What the hell is this about?" Daniel blurted out without any greeting, his voice frantic. The reason was clear, but I responded casually. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. The house is gone." I couldn't help but laugh out loud at Daniel's statement, hearing him panic on the other end. After my laughter subsided, I replied to Daniel. "Why?" "Well, it's my house, so if I'm not living there, I don't need it, right?" "We were living there." "What about our stuff?" "Don't worry. I've kept everything as is in a storage unit. I'll send you the location and the pin in a message." "Don't mess around. Bring everything back now. Give us our house back." "That's funny. The land and the house are in my name. I used the money I made from investments to build it, not a dime from you." It seemed Daniel finally remembered the circumstances under which the house was built. When we were deciding whether to remodel or rebuild, Daniel said he had no money and told me to do whatever I wanted with my own money. So, I took care of everything from the paperwork to the payments, building the house to my liking. But Daniel, seduced by Abigail, had completely forgotten about that. "Please, it's for your niece or nephew that's about to be born. Find us a house. It's unfair to Abigail." "My niece or nephew?" "I'd love to meet someone who can adore the child of the husband who cheated on them." "What are you saying? Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Daniel had believed he hadn't been caught, but his confident demeanor quickly changed. I pressed on. "I've been aware of your affair with Abigail since the day she barged into our house, and I've been collecting evidence since then." "Evidence?" "The baby camera Abigail had me buy. It's been recording." "You didn't notice, did you?" Daniel let out a small sound. The baby camera was the first thing Abigail demanded when she settled in. She had already done her homework and requested a high-end camera that costs $1,000. Of course, I initially refused, but after being yelled at by Daniel, I reluctantly bought it. However, the camera setup was left entirely to others, and neither Daniel nor Abigail had touched the camera since its purchase. So, I secretly activated it, capturing everything in the bedroom. True to its price, it even captures clear images in the dark, including both of you in bed and what you were doing under the covers. Snooping around like that is in poor taste. I was merely testing the capabilities of the baby camera. Still better than a man who cheats with his wife's sister, I'd say. Daniel seemed unable to respond. To Daniel, I cheerfully said, "Oh, and I think I left the mailbox untouched, so you might want to check that." The mailbox? Yes, it should have arrived by now. I could hear Daniel checking the mailbox over the phone. Then, the next moment, I heard his surprised voice. "Oh, good. It looks like it arrived, the certified mail. Make sure you take care of the payment, okay? Hey, there's one for Abigail too. Are you going to leech off your sister? What are you talking about? You two betrayed me, so this is a compensation claim. Family or not, it doesn't matter. But no excuses. We'll go through lawyers from here on out. Bye." Wait, Grace. I hung up, ignoring Daniel's call. My phone kept ringing off the hook, but I ignored it. I had already signed up for a new mobile phone over these 5 days, so the old one was just for keeping evidence. Ignoring it caused no problems. Daniel kept calling for about an hour but eventually gave up. He seems to have complained to the lawyer, who later reported to me with a tired voice. The next morning, I got a call on my mobile phone from Dad's side of the family. Since I hadn't given them my contact information, it was probably Abigail who had whined to them, planning to scold me. Reluctantly, I answered the call while recording it on my new phone. "Yes? How could you throw out a pregnant Abigail like that? Apologize to her immediately and provide a new house as compensation." Why should I apologize to a woman who slept with my husband? Whatever Abigail has told you, she should be the one to apologize. And she should be the one to pay compensation. This is why the daughter of a thief. Right. Just like the child of a dad who betrayed mom and had a child with his affair partner. You end up with someone weak-minded enough to sleep with her half-sister's husband, growing up just as poorly. Oh, and please tell Abigail to stay away from me from now on. Though, I doubt she'll have the luxury to do so. The relative was still complaining, but I hung up, feeling surprisingly refreshed after venting everything I had been holding back. I contacted the lawyer to summon Abigail and Daniel. I wouldn't close this chapter of revenge until I saw their frustrated faces. The meeting at the law office then took place. Before me were Abigail, looking sulky, and Daniel, appearing disgruntled. It seemed they hadn't learned their lesson even after all that had been said. "I never thought my sister would turn out to be such a miser. I'm shocked. If I knew she was so greedy, I wouldn't have married her. I was deceived." Hearing Abigail and Daniel's self-centered comments, I moved beyond anger to sheer disbelief. I laid the divorce papers in front of them and also presented another document, a marriage registration form. "As for the compensation, I might consider reducing it if you sign this. If signing this is all it takes to reduce the amount, then give it here," Daniel said, snatching the pen from me to sign. Abigail also signed, laughing. I put the documents in a file and then smiled brightly. "I'll make sure to submit this to the office." "Did you forget, sis? I'm already married. It won't be accepted anyway." "Well, don't worry. You're single now." "Huh?" Abigail looked at me with a dumbfounded expression. I rephrased it for her, making it easier to understand. "Yesterday, the divorce mediation finalized our divorce. I didn't know about that. Well, you threw away the mail without checking it. There were several letters, orders to appear in court. I got a message from your husband saying the divorce was finalized and now he's filing to deny paternity of the child. That can't be. While Abigail stood there dumbfounded, Daniel seemed oddly pleased. No wonder, since he could marry Abigail until after her remarriage prohibition period ends. To Daniel, who seemed quite content, I smiled sweetly. It must be tough for you, having to support a child that isn't yours. What? The child in her belly is mine. Oh, you didn't know? Poor thing. The child Abigail is carrying is actually from her real boyfriend at the club. Club guy? When Daniel turned to Abigail with force, she awkwardly looked away, indicating my statement was true. Seeing this, Daniel's face turned pale, realizing the truth. Good luck with the compensation payment and raising someone else's child. I know it'll be tough. Grace, let's start over. I was wrong. After all, there's Scarlett. As Daniel changed his tune, the door to the lawyer's office burst open, and a woman walked in. Daniel turned pale the moment he saw her. Scarlett? Dad, you're the worst. Hurting Mom like that. I'm cutting ties with you. From now on, I'll live with Mom. You and that loose woman can just disappear. Scarlett had never spoken so harshly before, leaving Daniel frozen in shock. Meanwhile, Abigail, insulted, was red-faced and trembling. Who are you calling loose? Sleeping with someone other than your husband, then my husband, and also your real boyfriend from the club. Which part of that isn't loose? Are you insane? Scarlett's fierceness left Abigail speechless. I delivered the final blow to Abigail. Just so you know, he's frugal but never manages to save money because he spends it all on young women, so be careful. What? But what about the house, the car? Oh, those? All mine. Bought with my dividend income. We used them as a married couple, but after the divorce, we're strangers. A man with a $3,000 salary couldn't afford that car anyway. $3,000? Even though he works for a big company? Apparently motivated by money, Abigail was frozen in shock. Daniel, too, was looking down, embarrassed by the revelation of his low salary. Well, good luck with everything. I said that and left with Scarlett, entrusting the rest to the lawyer. The dinner I had with Scarlett that night was genuinely enjoyable and delicious, the best we had in a long time. Later, I filed the divorce papers. When Abigail's remarriage prohibition period ended, I also submitted Daniel and Abigail's marriage registration. The witness section was signed by me and Abigail's ex-husband. Daniel was fired for repeatedly cheating with Abigail during work hours and misappropriating travel expenses for their affairs. Now he's struggling, working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Abigail seems to be taking care of the child but cries daily, having been dumped by her club boyfriend once the money ran out, unable to tolerate her unbearable personality. Abigail admitted she targeted Daniel because she couldn't stand that I got married and had a child before she did, wanting to ruin it. She thought she could get money from both her ex-husband and Daniel by claiming the child was Daniel's and leave the care to me while she visited her club boyfriend. After all this, even her relatives have abandoned her, forcing her to reluctantly take up part-time work, which didn't last long due to her attitude. Now, she, Daniel, and the baby live cramped together, barely scraping by. Scarlett is enjoying her university life. I was surprised to learn her roommate was her same-sex partner, but seeing Scarlett happy made me think it was all right. As for me, I continue to live off my dividend income. After the divorce, I've been in touch more with Abigail's ex-husband, who's been asking me out to dinner. It seems that Abigail and her ex-husband were married through their parents' introduction, pushed heavily by Abigail herself, I later learned. Yet, I wonder why she was dissatisfied with him, to the point of curiosity. I received a message from him earlier on my mobile phone, saying he has something important to discuss, making me feel somewhat restless today. Despite telling myself not to expect too much, my face blushed like that of a girl in love as I sat in front of the dresser, applying makeup.
You're so dumb. Can't you do this more efficiently? It's frustrating just watching you. The harassment from my sister-in-law, Michelle, escalated day by day. It even started to interfere with my work from home. But I didn't break, because there was a job I desperately wanted to complete. My name is Amanda Smith, 29 years old. Working as a contract employee for a certain company, I live modestly with my dad, taking over the household chores to relieve my busy dad. He raced through life without a break, raising a daughter on his own. Gradually, I wanted to ease his burden a bit. When I was still in elementary school, Dad placed his large hand on my head and said, "You don't have to try so hard with the housework. Use your time as you like. That makes me happier." Dad was always kind and generous, no matter how tired he was. Secretly, I wished for his happiness. I hope Dad will find great happiness someday. This small wish came true a few years ago. Dad's new wife was named Barbara. Barbara, with her daughter Michelle, moved into the house where Dad and I lived. Barbara was honest and kind-hearted, a wonderful woman. In contrast, her daughter Michelle was prideful and cunning. It didn't take long for Michelle, initially quiet and reserved, to show her true colors. That day, as usual, I prepared lunch for Dad and sent him off to work. Barbara was away on a business trip since yesterday. Michelle, a college student, should have had lectures today. I decided to prepare her lunch before she woke up. Even with 4 in the family, I still managed all the household chores. Working from home, I had some flexibility, and I didn't mind cleaning or cooking. It was a nice break from work, refreshing my mind. Barbara, now my stepmother, said, "I feel bad having you do everything." But I assured her I enjoyed it. By the time I set breakfast for Michelle and me on the table, I heard her coming down the stairs. Groggy Michelle entered the living room, and I greeted her. "Good morning. Breakfast is ready. Your lunch is on the table, too. Feel free to take it." Michelle paused and said, "I'm not going to college today." "Huh? But your calendar said you had lectures." "They were rescheduled later. I updated the calendar. Didn't you see it?" Sorry, haven't checked yet." In our house, where lifestyles greatly differ, we decided to write down schedules on a shared calendar. I'm still not used to this new habit and sometimes forget to check. Michelle sighed heavily and muttered, "You're really clumsy," before returning to her room. I didn't take her words too seriously, assuming she was just cranky from waking up. 2 weeks passed since then. After days of relentless rain, it finally cleared up on a sunny Saturday morning. Feeling refreshed, I was hanging laundry when I sensed Michelle, who had slept in, getting up. But something was noisy. She rushed from the bathroom to the upstairs, then hurried back down, looking around the living room. "Hey, where's my skirt?" Michelle's demanding tone was suddenly directed at me. "Skirt? If you mean the one in the laundry basket yesterday, I'm about to hang it." "No, the one I asked you to wash separately 2 days ago. I told you at dinner, remember?" "Oh, that one. It had a small tear, so I decided to mend it before washing separately. I finished mending it last night, and it's in the washer now." "What? Didn't you listen to me? I said I needed it washed early because I'm wearing it today. Are you even listening?" I was at a loss for words. Indeed, she had asked to wash that long skirt separately, but I wasn't informed she needed it today. I recalled our conversation from 2 nights ago. I want to wear it next Saturday, so please wash it by then. Next as in next week? Yeah. Don't make me repeat myself. Michelle ended the conversation abruptly, playing with her phone. That's when the misunderstanding occurred. And it was Michelle who hadn't listened properly. Though I had no reason to be blamed, I didn't want to argue and said, "Sorry, I misunderstood the date." But Michelle, standing before me, glared with a disdainful look. Think an apology solves everything? This is why I hate dumb people. Having a high school graduate sister is just unbearable. Can't even manage household stuff properly. Michelle attends an elite university known nationwide. Our worlds are different. Yet I had hoped we'd get along, now that we're family. Just to be clear, I never thought of you as family from the start. Michelle said mockingly, with a disturbing smile. Seeing that expression, I felt an eerie chill. From that day, Michelle's disdain towards me became more apparent in her actions. When I worked from home, loud music blared from Michelle's room. Not just disrupting my work, but loud enough to be a nuisance to the neighbors. Could you lower the volume a bit? The neighbors might complain. I asked timidly, but she retorted. What? Don't boss me around. I'm annoyed by the typing sounds from your room. She slammed the door in my face. On another day, Michelle brought friends home and said loudly, Isn't it embarrassing having a high school graduate sister who can't even get a decent job? I wish she'd move out soon. One of her friends, leaving, jokingly said to my door, Sorry for disturbing. Michelle feels sorry for you, so please move out soon, okay? Her friends laughed as they passed my room. These harassments always happened when our parents were away. In front of Dad and Barbara, Michelle played the role of a good sister, eerily amicable towards me. Before long, Michelle graduated from university and secured a job at a major corporation. Within a year, she got engaged to her company's superior. By then, I had moved out to live alone, freeing myself from daily harassments and gradually regaining a peaceful life. One day, an invitation to Michelle's wedding arrived. The ceremony was to be held overseas. Sighing, I placed the invitation on a nearby table. About 3 months later, I boarded a plane from Los Angeles International Airport to France. Since moving out, I had become distant from my family. I was worried about Dad, but Barbara was with him. Without me in that house, Michelle wouldn't cause trouble. To preserve Dad's happiness, I wanted to avoid family conflicts. It was better to keep my distance from Michelle and minimize visits to my family home. To Dad and Barbara, I said I moved out to focus on my career. Despite the suddenness, they respected my decision, telling me, Don't worry about home. Just do what you think is right. Yes, you should pursue what you want. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, they said with a smile. It's true, Michelle's actions affected my work, but that wasn't the only reason I left. I felt it was time to confront my own life and take a new step. On the night before Michelle's wedding, in my hotel room, checking the dress and belongings for the next day, my phone rang. Michelle's name appeared on the screen. A bad feeling washed over me. Hesitantly, I answered the phone. It was Michelle's voice after several months. Hey, long time no see. Where are you right now? In a hotel in Paris. There was a brief pause in the conversation. Then, laughter erupted from the other end. Really went, huh? Are you stupid? How crazy can you be? What do you mean? That overseas wedding was a lie. Fooled you as expected. I'll send the real invitation later, okay? By the way, if you don't show up, I'll ruin something very dear to you. The call ended there. I sat weakly on the bed. Michelle had played a cruel trick on me, and she might be planning another scheme. Additionally, Michelle said, moreover, she threatened to ruin what's most important to me if I didn't attend. Such an act could harm not just me, but Dad and Barbara as well. Michelle could easily do something like that. The peace I had regained seemed to crumble in my mind. As long as Michelle and I are family, this situation will continue. I have no choice but to meekly follow Michelle's actions. Always. Then my thoughts abruptly stopped. Why did I leave home? Wasn't it to fully pursue what I wanted? I haven't achieved anything yet. Instead of feeling weak, I should work to change the situation. Even someone like me can find a way to stand up to Michelle. I rose from the bed and reached for the curtains by the window. Outside the glass, the Parisian night unfolded. Life is strange. Sometimes when wandering in the dark, the path forward is illuminated and becomes clear. This was one of those moments. I closed the curtains, turned off the light, and slid into bed. The earlier anxiety had vanished, replaced by a soothing drowsiness. I closed my eyes slowly. Eventually, I spent about a week in France, taking the opportunity to enjoy sightseeing before returning home. Recharged, I returned to the U.S. and threw myself into work. Forgetting to eat and sleep, I spent days glued to my computer. My mind ran at full speed, devouring documents and typing furiously. After 2 months of this lifestyle, I visited a specific place. Walking down the main street in front of the station, I entered one of the buildings. Exiting the elevator on the 3rd floor, I knocked on the first door down the hall. A soft female voice invited me in from inside. In my tote bag was a thick file at home. Inside was a large amount of copy paper that I had printed out at home. I intended to hand these to someone. As I touched the doorknob, a wave of nervousness made my fingers tremble. It's okay, I've done everything I could. Now it was up to fate. I calmed myself down and quietly stepped into the room. On the day of Michelle's wedding, I had called the venue to inform them of my absence. Michelle probably thought I underestimated her, that high school graduate fool. Prideful Michelle, always needing to feel superior. But now I understood. Michelle lacked something vital, something I possessed, but she did not. A knock on the dressing room door, and a man peeked in.
Excuse me, it's almost time. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I'll be right out. I picked up a Western book from beside me and left the room. At the same time, Michelle's wedding reception was underway. Stephen, her husband, was the son of a corporate president. Among the guests were some notable figures, and Michelle was inwardly proud. While everyone enjoyed the grand food and friends' performances, a man discreetly approached Stephen. After whispering something, Stephen said to Michelle,
Amanda isn't coming today. She appeared on TV. Did you know?
Michelle was taken aback, clueless. Looking towards the guests, she noticed some commotion among Stephen's invitees.
It was also streamed online. Seems to be quite a topic.
A colleague from Michelle's company nearby was heard speaking on her phone.
I've read this book too. Just released last month and already going for a reprint. It's a foreign sci-fi novel. The author passed away long ago, but it turns out it's written by a globally renowned scientist. Someone started saying online.
Another colleague at the same table mentioned, That's the one that's been trending on social media recently, right? It's got futuristic, predictive scenes, and a friend told me it's interesting. A translator named Amanda Smith. She was on a show today at noon. Amanda Smith? Isn't that Michelle's sister-in-law's name? Hearing this, Michelle immediately opened her mobile phone. A search on her timeline brought up my name. The top article read, Historic scientist posthumous work discovered. Interview with translator Amanda Smith on her encounter with the book. The wedding venue was already buzzing with this news. Amid the commotion, the ceremony soon concluded. After changing in the dressing room, Michelle stepped into the hallway to see her parents and Stephen. Along with Stephen's parents, in a tense atmosphere.
Such an embarrassment, being the subject of harassment. We were clueless, and now we don't even know how to respond to inquiries from acquaintances,
said Daniel, Stephen's father, and the head of a major corporation, in a stern tone.
I've dined with Michelle numerous times, but she never once mentioned her sister-in-law, Amanda. Are they on bad terms? I value family bonds, you know. I was lenient because Stephen seemed smitten, but I hear some women at the company don't think highly of Michelle. Do you think I know nothing?
Finally, Daniel added,
You better make this right. Call Amanda immediately. Arrange for me to meet her directly. If you can't reach Amanda, consider this marriage null and void.
Undoing a marriage was easy for someone like Daniel. If the marriage were called off after such a grand ceremony, it would severely tarnish Michelle's reputation. She'd be too embarrassed to face her colleagues, and her friends would surely ridicule her. Michelle, pale-faced, frantically pulled out her mobile phone. First call, second call, only the hollow ring. Fifth call, the number you're trying to reach is not answering. An automated voice responded.
Maybe she's blocked you,
her father suggested. No way. Amanda must just be busy, Michelle defended.
Skipping a day on the wedding itself is not normal unless there's an accident or illness, especially for family. I don't want to invite more trouble into my home. A woman like you, prone to problems, is clearly not suitable for our family,
Daniel concluded. But the ceremony is already over. Stephen, don't just stand there, say something. Michelle looked at Stephen with her characteristic pleading eyes, but Stephen turned away, refusing to look at her. At that moment, Michelle realized something. Her parents, standing behind her, were silent, just observing. They could have defended their daughter, but hadn't said a word. Mom, it's not my fault, right? Tell them it's not my fault. Barbara smiled ruefully and said, Actually, I got a call from Amanda yesterday. She said she couldn't make it to the wedding for some reasons. It's a long story, but you'll understand soon. It might be inconvenient for both of you, but she asked for forgiveness just this once. It's a big moment in her life. That's what Amanda said. What do you mean? You knew about today? You knew and didn't tell me? Yes, exactly. If I had told you, you would have interfered, right? After all the trouble you've caused Amanda, you never learn. Really, you're impossible. I've failed as a mother. Michelle listened with a defiant expression. We thought if you experienced some hardship, you'd understand. So Dad and I discussed it, and as bad as we felt for Amanda, we decided to turn a blind eye. It seems this is a family matter. We as outsiders should leave. Someone interjected. Wait, please, we're not done here. I'll bring Amanda, I promise. Please reconsider, Daniel.
I don't want to be addressed by my name by you. Do you want to anger me further?
Even Michelle fell silent under Daniel's stern gaze. This time she had picked the wrong battle. She watched dazed as Stephen and his parents walked away. Michelle, tasting her biggest defeat, finally realized her emptiness. After successfully appearing on the TV show, I was dining with an acquaintance. A French dinner at a luxurious hotel. Across from me sat Pamela, a dignified, calm elderly lady. I chose this place to celebrate. I wonder if a more casual setting would have been better. No, I'm really grateful. It's my first time dining somewhere like this, so I'm a bit nervous. I like your honesty. Just be yourself. I don't like formalities either. Enjoy the meal to the fullest. Pamela's titles included French literature researcher, translator, and translation school lecturer. She was also my mentor. I once found an old Western book among Mom's belongings. Dad said its origin was unknown. It appeared to be a novel written in French. There were notes throughout indicating Mom had read it repeatedly. I remembered how Mom hummed foreign songs while cooking or doing laundry. It happened before I could remember, so I don't remember it clearly. Could those lyrics have been in French? I started reading the book bit by bit, translating with a dictionary, and got absorbed in its world. I became enchanted with the French language. I devoured French books and translated my favorites. I was so engrossed that I lost track of time. After becoming a working adult, I started attending translation school during nights and weekends. One of my teachers, impressed by my language skills, introduced me to translation work. I was delighted to take it on, especially since it could be done from home. Around the same time, Dad decided to remarry. Even with the increased family size, my work wasn't affected, except for the issues with Michelle.
I was surprised when you handed me a thick manuscript. Your translation skills were professional level, and the novel had a unique world view.
I had been translating for years, but I was never quite satisfied with my work. It took a long time, but completing it helped me grow mentally.
Yes, translation is a battle with oneself. Each completed work feels like shedding a skin. It's fascinating.
I agree. That's why I can't stop. Pamela smiled warmly upon hearing my words. It's a blessing to have something you want to pursue passionately in life. When I returned home after a long time, Barbara greeted me. Dad was still busy with work, coming home late as usual. I heard footsteps coming down from upstairs.
Ah, finally awake. Michelle, you have a part-time job today.
After the wedding cancellation and leaving her job, Michelle seemed to have been staying home. Barbara had told her,
How long will you sulk? Do you want to live miserably like this forever? If you don't want to start over, you better leave this house.
Worried about being kicked out, Michelle reluctantly started looking for part-time work and settled on a grocery store clerk position. As Michelle passed by the living room, she glanced at me awkwardly and hurried out the door.
Amanda, you're going overseas for work, right? You said something about a potential contract with a new author?
Yes, it looks like it's going to be finalized, but they want to meet in person.
That's great. I'm relieved to hear your translation work is going well. Take care, and I'm looking forward to the souvenirs.
Barbara's innocent smile made me smile too. Continuing to do what I love is enough for me. I thought it was that simple. My ability to become a translator was because I maintained a pure heart. It's a gift from Mom in heaven. A talent to enjoy life to the fullest. On my way back from my parents' house, I passed by a dogwood tree. Stopping to look, I saw many buds waiting to bloom. Surely, I'm just getting started too. Blooming one flower at a time, I'll continue on my path. As the gentle spring breeze blew, I started walking again.
Huh? That's your management mistake? Why do I have to stop drinking and go back?
Even though I had anticipated it, I was at a loss for words when my prediction came true to such an extent. Please don't say that. I'm begging you.
Stop nagging. Don't call me just because you can't get into the room. Go sleep in the parking lot or something.
It sounded like he was at a club, with young women's voices in the background. While I hadn't forbidden him from going to clubs, the situation was serious. It was unforgivable for him to use this as an excuse to throw me out. My anger reached its peak at my husband's carefree and merry demeanor. Fine, if you insist, I'll sleep outside. Goodbye. With those words, I hung up the phone unilaterally and headed outside the hotel. It was my eldest son and his wife who came to my rescue. My daughter-in-law, Martina, was furious when she heard the story. My son, Wilbert, had a stern look on his face, clearly angered. Sophia, let's teach Joe a lesson together. After hearing my story, Martina said this and grasped my hand,
Huh? I can't stand men who belittle women, especially when it's Wilbert's beloved mother. If a man can't cherish a woman, he doesn't deserve to be a man.
But how do we teach him a lesson?
There's only one answer to that.
You're not suggesting.
Sophia, you haven't forgotten the ways of the night, have you?
Wait, what are you planning to do?
We're going to show him the pain. Let him feel what it's like to be belittled as a woman.
Martina's laugh, though sinister and almost terrifying, echoed.
That's why I didn't want to come. Anchorage is just cold, and there's nothing to do.
Upon arriving at the airport, my husband started complaining, making me sigh heavily. Sophia Alger, 59 years old. I came to Anchorage on a trip with my 65-year-old husband, Joe, who had recently retired. As a divorced single mother, I had been busy with work and raising my child after my divorce. My son, Wilbert, was still young, and I had no time to even think about romance. However, Joe, my current husband, relentlessly pursued me, wanting to be my support. But I was too busy to pay him any attention and kept working hectically. Nevertheless, Joe never gave up and kept asking me out. Finally, I succumbed to his persistent affection, leading to our current relationship. Initially, he was a kind and dependable husband, but gradually his behavior changed. Whether it was to maintain his dignity or just for the sake of being bossy, he started showing an exaggerated sense of self-importance. What are you saying so soon after we arrive? Look outside, it's all white. Although Joe had become a mistakenly henpecked husband, he was still my partner of many years. At this age, the thought of getting a late-life divorce seems daunting, but I've always been skilled at handling people. Figuring out how to keep Joe in the palm of my hand, almost like a game, isn't such a bad way to live. Since I've adopted this mindset, I no longer feel pained by Joe's arrogance.
So, our ride is not here yet?
Joe, disgruntled, didn't even bother to look at the scenery outside, continuing in a bothered tone. Despite his attitude making me sigh again, the snowy view outside quickly uplifted my spirits. At this point, it feels like I'm raising a child again. It's not a complaint, but rather a scary familiarity. This trip to Anchorage would make me realize that. I think it's already here. As I urged the grumpy Joe outside, the vast snowy landscape took my breath away. We get snow in Boston where we live, but it's been a while since I've seen such a heavy snowfall. Lost in the beauty, a honk from a large minivan parked nearby startled me.
Mom, Dad, over here.
It was Wilbert, waving from the window. As Joe and I approached the vehicle, the rear door opened automatically, revealing Wilbert's face in the rearview mirror.
That was a long trip, huh? You must be tired.
It was nothing much. You look good, though. How are things with Martina?
Great, as always. We even went to a hot spring in Idaho recently.
Idaho? That sounds wonderful. I'd love to relax in a hot spring, too. Right, Joe?
As long as I can drink, I'm fine with anything.
Is he a genius at ruining the mood? His mood-killing remark made me let out an exasperated, "Really?" But Wilbert, used to such behavior, quickly shifted to a new topic. However, Joe soon closed his eyes and fell asleep, probably because he's uncomfortable around Wilbert. It wasn't like this before, but ever since Wilbert's career started taking off, Joe's attitude changed drastically, becoming cold and distant. But Wilbert doesn't seem to care about Joe's behavior. His mental strength must come from me.
Martina's been eager to see you, Mom.
Martina is Wilbert's wife. When he first announced he was dating a girl 13 years his junior, our relatives were all over him, accusing him of leading a young girl astray. But in reality, Wilbert had found someone truly wonderful, and as a parent, I couldn't be happier. Tell her we'll see her tonight, okay? I'm looking forward to it.
Got it. I've arranged for our chauffeur to pick you up.
Thank you so much, really.
Don't mention it. You're in Anchorage now. Enjoy it.
The conversation never ran dry, perhaps because it had been years since we last met. Before we knew it, we had reached the station area, and the car pulled up at our hotel. After thanking Wilbert, we got out of the car and headed towards the hotel lobby.
Hey, go check us in. I'll wait here on the sofa.
Joe seemed exhausted from the travel, quickly settling onto a lobby sofa. Used to his ways, I checked in and got the room key. Got the room key?
Ah.
Joe responded briefly and lethargically got up to head for the elevator. Once we reached our floor and entered the room, a breathtaking view greeted us. Wow, it's beautiful. When was the last time I saw such a sight?
We just saw it. Is it really worth getting that excited about?
Really, Joe? Why do you always have to say something that ruins the moment? Keep talking like that and your face will stay twisted. I couldn't help but retort to his unnecessary comment, and Joe just grunted and laid down in the bed. He turned on the TV and started flipping through the channels, throwing a question over his shoulder.
What, they don't have that show here?
Joe, this is Anchorage. Of course they don't have our local programs.
What? I knew that. Just saying, you know.
He definitely forgot. He absolutely forgot we were in Anchorage right now. It's these occasional, obvious moments that make it hard to leave him alone. But I can't tease him too much, or he'll sulk and refuse to do anything. It's a bit tiresome having to balance it just right. Joe, let's go outside. I want to explore the city.
You go on your own. I'm going to rest until it's time. I'm tired.
His indifferent response on this much-awaited trip made me frown. What did he even come to Anchorage for? Frustrated as I was, I quickly tucked away those feelings and switched gears. I knew too well that once Joe got like this, he wouldn't budge. Resigned, I decided to explore the city alone. Anchorage had changed since I last visited. The familiar sights I remembered were nowhere to be found, but it was refreshingly new. I continued exploring the city streets until it was time to meet Wilbert and his family together for dinner. As it was getting late, I decided to head back to the hotel. I thought I'd need to fetch Joe, but it turned out to be unnecessary. There he was in the lobby, waiting on the sofa with a lively expression.
Is our ride here yet?
You really spring into action when alcohol is involved, don't you? Joe loves his drinks, and his drinking habit has been a problem for me. I had asked him to restrain himself this time, not wanting to trouble our eldest son and his wife. But Wilbur insisted he'd handle it, and I reluctantly agreed.
The drinks in Anchorage are supposed to be great. I'm going to drink to my heart's content tonight.
Just keep it moderate, please. We can't cause trouble for Martina and the others. The thought of causing a scene filled me with dread. As we waited, a minivan pulled up, and what seemed like Wilbert's driver appeared, escorting us to the vehicle. The car soon departed, heading to the restaurant where Wilbert and his wife were waiting.
Over here, both of you.
There they were, Wilbert and Martina, in front of the restaurant. Joe, Sophia, it's been a while.
Well, Martina, you're as beautiful as ever.
Thank you, Joe. I'm really happy you called and came all this way to visit us.
We had to. Inviting my son and his wife is only natural when coming to Anchorage.
It was Joe who had suggested inviting Wilbert and his wife. He said since we were going to Anchorage, why not invite them? But his real intention was probably Martina. He wanted to drink with a beautiful woman. His ulterior motive was obvious. But Martina, being experienced, handled it well. Don't worry, Sophia. Leave it to me. You must be tired from your usual routine. I'll take care of Joe so you can enjoy the meal, okay? Her kindness, more concerned about me than Joe's intentions, made me decide to indulge in it.
Come on, let's go inside where it's warm. The food here is delicious, and the bourbon is top-notch. Really? That sounds exciting.
He really livens up when it comes to alcohol. With an exasperated look, I watched as the men disappeared into the restaurant. Joe is still the same, isn't he? Really? Always such a handful.
But he's pretty simple from your point of view, right?
I guess it's a walk in the park for me.
Foo foo foo. It's comforting to see that some things never change. Let's go inside and eat some delicious food, shall we?
Martina and I walked in later and were guided to our table. The men had already started drinking, and both of us sighed at the sight. The meal began, and we enjoyed Anchorage's fresh seafood and delicious drinks. It was a lavish experience, and the clock was nearing 10 p.m.
Man, that was good. I always wanted to bring you two to this place when we came to Anchorage. I'm glad we did. It was really delicious, especially the bourbon. It was superb.
Joe, you say that about anything you drink, right?
Now, Sophia. But really, it was wonderful. I had a great time talking with you, Sophia. I'm satisfied, too.
Martina's smile seemed angelic, and I couldn't help but smile naturally. The restaurant was about to close, so we paid the bill and headed out, taking a taxi back to the hotel.
You go back to the hotel first.
What will you do?
I'm going out to drink again. It's Anchorage after all. I can't just not drink.
I was astounded by Joe's nonchalant attitude. Having walked around all day, I was physically exhausted and decided to return to the room.
All right, I'm off then.
Joe walked off briskly into the night, increasing my sense of disbelief. Just as I thought about taking a shower to relax, something struck me. Oh no, does Joe have the room key? After Joe left last, I realized I hadn't taken the room key from him. This hotel required guests to manage their own room keys, and losing one meant a fine. I didn't lose it, but I needed to call Joe back. No choice but to call him. What a predicament. How many times had I sighed today? While pondering this, I called Joe, who surprisingly answered quickly.
What's up? You're interrupting my fun.
His obviously irritated voice made me slightly annoyed. But getting angry would only worsen his mood. I reminded myself to smile and forced a strained one over the phone. Sorry to interrupt, but you have the room key, right? I can't get into our room. Could you please come back?
Huh? That's your fault for not managing it. Why do I have to stop drinking and come back?
Though I anticipated his response, it was still frustratingly on point. Please don't say that. I'm really stuck here.
Stop nagging me. If you can't get into your room, just sleep in the parking lot or somewhere like that.
I could hear the voices of young women in the background. Maybe he was at a club. I hadn't forbidden him from going to clubs, but the current situation was serious. I couldn't tolerate him leaving me out in the cold like this. My anger peaked at Joe's carefree and merry attitude. Fine, if that's what you want, I'll sleep outside. Goodbye. After saying that, I ended the call and headed outside the hotel. I should have thought of asking for a master key, but I was too angry to consider it at the time. The Anchorage night was freezing, and I could feel my body temperature dropping rapidly. What should I do now? Just then, my phone rang.
Oh, Mom, what are you doing right now?
I can't get into my room because of a situation.
What? Where are you? Go to a family restaurant or a grocery store. I'll send someone to pick you up.
It was Wilbert on the phone. What perfect timing. I sighed with relief at this lifeline. Soon, a ride arrived, and I was taken to Wilbert's house. As I got out of the car, Martina greeted me and led me inside. I'm sorry for barging into your home like this. Don't be silly. Are you okay? Thank you, Martina. I'm fine.
Why couldn't you get back to the hotel? Where's the room key?
As I sat on the living room sofa, moved by Martina's warmth, Wilbert spoke up in a serious tone. I explained the situation to him and sipped the coffee he ordered.
So, it was Dad, after all.
You knew?
Actually, I got a call from one of my staff earlier. They said a man resembling your husband was at one of my clubs, arguing with his wife on the phone.
Unbeknownst to Joe, Wilbert was a shrewd businessman who owned several establishments, including a club. Joe had apparently gone there.
Unbelievable. Who just leaves a woman out in the cold because he wants to drink?
Aren't you upset about it, Sophia? Huh? Martina's question left me speechless. Certainly, I couldn't contain my anger. But after decades together, I had resigned myself to the idea that this is just how he is, and getting angry was a waste of time. I'm really upset. To treat someone important to you like that, even if it's Joe, I can't forgive that. Martina's face was stern as she confronted me, making me instinctively step back. Sophia, let's teach Joe a lesson. Huh? I can't stand men who belittle women, especially when it's Wilbert's dear mother. If a man can't cherish a woman, he's not worth being a man.
But how do we teach him a lesson?
There's only one answer to that.
You're not suggesting.
Sophia, you haven't forgotten the ways of the night, have you? Wait, what are you planning to do? We're going to show him the pain. Let him feel what it's like to be belittled as a woman. Martina's laugh was sinister, almost terrifying. Come on, we can't just sit around. We need to hurry and get ready. Sophia, Wilbert, let's go. With those words, Martina led us in a taxi to the club managed by Wilbert. Upon arrival, several staff members greeted us at the entrance. We were escorted to a backstage area, surrounded by makeup artists, coordinators, and the club's exclusive staff. I've gathered my personal staff, so you're in good hands. Let's let you get back to your glamorous self, Sophia. Wait, Martina, what are you saying? We're going to show Joe just how incredible you are. Martina was full of enthusiasm, seemingly enjoying herself, which I found reassuring.
Everything's set on my end, Martina. I've contacted the people you asked for.
Great work, Wilbert. Let's hurry with the makeup and changing. At Martina's signal, I was swiftly transformed with a dress change and makeup application. Wearing a dress after such a long time, along with hair and makeup, felt rejuvenating. The corset straightened my posture naturally. Sophia, are you ready? Yes, of course. I lifted my face with determination, ready to step into the battleground that the club would become.
Excuse me, sir. We have a special event tonight. Would you like to join our number one for a drink free of charge?
The server's offer, especially mentioning no charge, brightened Joe's face. For Joe, there was no reason to refuse.
Sure, that's fine. Introduce her to me. Certainly. Martina, please come over.
As the server called her, Martina approached Joe first. With her makeup and flashy dress, Joe didn't seem to recognize her as Wilbert's wife. Nice to meet you. I'm Martina. Pleasure to serve you.
Martina, huh? Nice to meet you,
Joe said, placing his hand on Martina's shoulder. Watching from the back room, I felt a sense of discomfort at his behavior, resolving to apologize to Wilbert later. After some enjoyable conversation and laughter, it was finally my turn to approach Joe's table. Mr. Joe, we have a new lady here tonight. Would you like to meet her?
Sure. I'd do anything you ask.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead. When Martina signaled the staff, I walked towards Joe's table. Here's our new girl, Sophia. Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia. Pardon my intrusion.
Wow, Sophia, quite beautiful. Wait, what? Sophia?
Joe, at first not realizing, finally recognized me after seeing my face and hearing my voice, reacting dramatically with surprise. Oh, have we met before?
What are you saying? What is this act? Ouch!
He raised his voice in surprise. I stepped on his foot, smiling as if to silence him. Sir, please keep your voice down. We have other guests in the establishment.
What are you doing? No, what is this about? Why are you here?
Can't you see? You left me out, so I'm being looked after here.
Huh? Do you even realize where you are?
Just as Joe started to confront me, the music in the club got louder, and several male customers gathered around our table.
What is this? These are Sophia's clients, here to celebrate her one-day return. Wilbert, what are you doing here?
Oh, didn't you know? This place is managed by Wilbert.
What?
Joe's eyes nearly popped out of his head, overwhelmed by the unexpected events.
I just had to guide her here when Mom said she was making a one-day comeback. The clients insisted, even if just for a greeting.
The other patrons started making noises, realizing something unusual was happening.
Hey, isn't that Martina, the #1 bottle girl? Wait, but next to her, isn't that the legendary #1 bottle girl from Anchorage?
Martina, wait, what are you saying Sophia is?
Aren't you catching on yet, Joe?
Martina tilted her head playfully with a sly smile.
Martina, what's going on?
I'm the #1 bottle girl here, and...
Martina gestured towards me, smiling brightly.
She's the former #1 bottle girl of Anchorage, Sophia, who once made over $1 million in a single day.
What?
At Martina's revelation, Joe fell from his chair, looking up at me pathetically.
Joe, you really knew nothing about Sophia. After decades together, that's so sad.
Sophia was the #1 bottle girl? $1 million? Wait, I can't comprehend this.
Understandably, he was completely taken aback. Overwhelmed by the barrage of information, Joe couldn't process it all, so I pressed on further. Well, sir, about today's bill, that'll be $100,000.
What, are you kidding me?
Of course not. After all, I was the one serving. That's a bargain for my services.
I don't have that kind of money. Besides, you said there was no charge.
That was only for my part. I never said Sophia's service was free, did I?
That's cheating. You tricked me.
You wouldn't have been tricked if you had listened properly. This is your punishment for locking me out of the hotel. You'll pay in full. As soon as I mentioned being locked out of the hotel, the men surrounding us turned to face Joe with a menacing look.
What do you mean?
They demanded, grabbing his shirt.
No, it's a misunderstanding. Calm down, please.
Really? Because of you? I almost froze under the cold sky.
I'm sorry. I won't do it again.
No, I won't forgive you.
Martina stepped in, glaring at Joe.
Until you apologize for your disregard towards my mother and vow to treasure her, I won't forgive you.
I promise. Just help me.
Joe, begging pathetically, was released after being forced to make a heartfelt apology.
Sophia, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I won't be arrogant anymore. I'll cherish my family. Please forgive me and let's start over.
A burly customer grabbed Joe's hair, turned his face towards me, and threatened him not to disrespect me again, then roughly threw him to the ground.
I promise I won't mistreat my wife again. I'll cherish her.
Joe was finally released and went to apologize to Martina and the others. After being sternly reminded by Martina, Joe also changed his attitudes towards Wilbert. Later, discussing this with Martina, she pointed out,
Charging $100,000 for service is pretty much fraud. I was worried we'd get caught.
We both chuckled at this. Indeed, the story about me being Anchorage's former #1 bottle girl was a fabrication. While I had worked there, I hadn't achieved anything extraordinary. Wilbert and Martina had gone out of their way to arrange everything, explaining the situation to the club's clients, all to keep Joe in the dark. Those surrounding me were all Martina's clients, who gladly agreed to play along for her. Since then, Joe seems to have truly changed, becoming as kind as he was when we first married. He still occasionally dreams about that hellish day, especially remembering the face of the man who grabbed him. While I felt a bit sorry for him, I thought it served as a good lesson.
You're good enough for dog food. Come on, say bow.
I never thought I'd be subjected to such humiliation. Although our marriage is still fresh, I've tried to comply with this woman's demands in my own way, but it seems all for naught. She might be an alien or something. That explains everything. I don't know the language aliens speak, but I no longer wish to talk to her. My name is Allison. I'm a 32-year-old office worker. Perhaps influenced by my game-loving older brother, I've been fond of games since childhood, especially role-playing games that immerse me in unreal worlds. I've made many friends through social media, which I started a few years ago. One of them is my husband, Carmine. We both liked the same game and shared favorite characters and spells. When a new game came out, we'd go buy it together. After years of such companionship, we became conscious of each other and decided to get married. Carmine's parents are Stanley, who is often away on solo assignments, and Bianca, a housewife. Stanley, due to his busy work, comes home only a few times a year. Carmine's grandmother, Stanley's mother, also lives with them but has been suffering from Alzheimer's for a few years now, and recently, her hearing has declined, making conversation difficult.
Grandma got forgetful all of a sudden when Dad went on his solo assignments. It must have been quite a shock,
he said. Bianca takes care of the grandmother-in-law. Since Carmine lived alone early on, his parents-in-law's home is just Bianca and the grandmother-in-law. I wondered if I would have to take care of a stranger who wasn't even my parent someday. However, both parents-in-law are healthy, and it seems that the opportunity is still far off. I was completely at ease. Until that one phone call. One day, it was my day off, and after finishing all the housework I had accumulated, I was playing my favorite game. Then, an unfamiliar sound rang out in my room. What's that sound again? Oh, a ringtone. I rarely get calls, so I forgot my own ringtone. Seeing the displayed name, I tensed up a bit. A call from Bianca? It was the first time I got a call from my mother-in-law, Bianca, and though nervous, I thought something might have happened, so I hurriedly answered. Hello?
You're late. It's common sense for a working adult to answer promptly when a superior calls.
The sudden sarcasm made me instinctively want to hang up, but I refrained. Sorry, I'll be careful. So what can I do for you today?
As if. You're free on your days off, right? Playing with that incomprehensible toy? Do some work. Fulfill your duties as Carmine's wife.
Told to visit the parents-in-law's home on my next day off, Bianca hung up. After the call, I was in a daze for a while. Why must I be subjected to sarcasm from a call I rarely get? I thought about ignoring it, but she is Carmine's mother, after all. Maybe I'll just listen to what she has to say. I decided to think that way. Of course, I reported to Carmine that night.
I'm really sorry. It's probably going to be a hassle, so you don't have to go.
It was honestly comforting to hear Carmine say that. Still, it's infuriating. At times like this, there's a place I always go to after work. Hello? Oh, if it isn't Allison, something bothering you? Susan from the pottery school greets me with a smile and those words. I start with a light heart, but now I'm completely engrossed. Susan is about the same age as my grandma, but is still strong and willing to listen to my life problems. She's like a mom to everyone. Of course, pottery is fun, but I come here to talk to Susan. Listen to this, Susan. I got a rare call from Bianca, and it was a parade of sarcasm. You must be free, she said, or do your duty as a wife. I didn't expect to be told such outdated things. Susan always listens to my complaints without a frown. Just ignore that pointless Bianca. There's still such old-fashioned people around. People who say such things are often lenient with themselves. My son's wife is just like that. I may not be blessed with Bianca, but I'm surrounded by kind people. It naturally makes me want to try harder. On my next day off, I did as Bianca told me and headed to the parents-in-law's home. When I parked and headed to the entrance, Bianca was already standing on the porch. Oh, scary. I struggled to stay calm and greeted her. Good morning. The norm is to act 30 minutes earlier. Don't keep your superiors waiting. She said that, and though I had just arrived, I already wanted to leave. I can understand this for work, but why must I be scolded for her inexplicable convenience? And a 30-minute early visit can be inconvenient for the other party, which I don't want to do. No, but it's still 10 minutes early. As I tried to answer, I was shouted at. Don't talk back. Am I in the military or something? I looked up, resigned. I will never open my heart to this person again, no matter what happens. And I will never take care of her in her old age. Even if offered a large sum of money, I refuse. Really, you're late for the appointment. Well, I'm off now. Bianca said this and was about to leave, so I stopped her. Wait a minute, you call me here without explanation, and I don't understand. Well, I'm going out until tonight, so you will have to come here on your days off from now on and do the housework. And take care of the person holed up in the back room, too. After saying this, Bianca left in her car. I've never met someone so hard to communicate with. She seemed kind when I met her with Stanley and Carmine, but that wasn't the case at all. I thought about going back without doing anything to avoid being scolded again. But more than that, I hadn't met my grandmother-in-law yet. Bianca had told grandmother-in-law, but since she didn't understand, she decided on her own that I didn't need to attend the family wedding. By the way, we only had a simple meal and didn't have a wedding ceremony. Later, Carmine and I were supposed to greet her together, but our days off didn't match, and embarrassingly, we never made it. Excuse me. As I opened the entrance door, a shocking scene unfolded. Too dirty. It wasn't quite a garbage house, but it seemed to be a matter of time before it became one. The room was overflowing with things, and a mountain of laundry, washed or not, spread across the floor, and the kitchen sink was full of dishes. Dust had accumulated in the corners of the room, and it was visibly appalling. The last time I came, the room was clean and tidy. What on earth happened? This is too terrible. As I was thinking this, I heard noises from the back room. Ah, grandmother-in-law. Thinking I should greet grandmother-in-law, I went to the room. Excuse me. Oh, since the day Bianca called me, I've been going to the parents-in-law's home as told. I've come to understand that Bianca probably spends every day out and returns home late at night. She doesn't seem to take care of the house or grandmother-in-law at all, and while she arrogantly tells me to do my wife's duties, it's clear that Bianca isn't fulfilling any herself. Maybe she got carried away because I obediently listened. I'm relieved that Carmine, who always plays with toys, finally brought home a wife, but after all, a wife is a stranger. I guess you're a free housekeeper. I was loudly told that once. In this day and age, harassing a son's wife is just unacceptable. Of course, I reported all of Bianca's actions to Carmine, who kept apologizing every time he heard about them. You don't have to go to that house anymore. That's what Carmine told me. He even said he would complain to Bianca himself, but I told him to wait because I had a plan. I continued to visit the parents-in-law's home because I was worried about grandmother-in-law. When Carmine saw that grandmother-in-law and I got along well, he was very pleased. After a few months of those days, while I was cleaning the parents-in-law's home as usual, Bianca said, "There's a memorial service at the end of this month, and people will gather, but make sure you don't say anything unnecessary, okay?" I smiled and replied, "Of course, Bianca." Bianca seemed not to be completely satisfied with my obedient self. The memorial service was for Carmine's grandfather, the grandfather-in-law's death anniversary. He had already passed away by the time I married Carmine, but he was said to be a gentle and kind person. He got along very well with grandmother-in-law, and they used to travel together. Carmine told me they always held hands when they were out. Grandfather-in-law died of cancer, and grandmother-in-law took devoted care of him. But the parents-in-law did not help at all. It's just unbelievable. There's a lot of preparation to do, so make sure you come early, okay? And I think you know what I mean. Bianca said that, and I cheerfully responded, "Yes, I'll act 30 minutes early." Yet she scolded me. "Your voice is too loud, be quiet." I thought about throwing the TV remote at her, but managed to hold back. "You can talk like that now, but just wait, get ready." I looked forward to the day of the memorial service. The long-awaited day of the memorial service. I was told to come 30 minutes early, but I went an hour early. Sure enough, it seemed to be an inconvenience, and Bianca, showing her true colors, came out of the entrance angry, saying, "You're too early."
There's such a thing as too much. Honestly, when I saw her face, I thought she was a monster. I quickly cleaned the room and prepared the tables when I heard a cheerful male voice say, "Good morning." Heading to the entrance, I saw the staff from a famous local steakhouse standing there. I had been there once with Carmine, and the meat was tender and quite delicious. However, it's not kind to the wallet, so it's not a place I can often go to. As if saying I was fine, Bianca pushed me aside and began talking to the handsome staff in a slightly high voice. "Good morning. Nice weather today, isn't it? Oof-oo-foo." I saw someone say oof-oo-foo for the first time and went back to preparing. "Hey, hurry up and carry the food that arrived early," I heard Bianca's annoying voice. While thinking, yes, I headed to the kitchen. There I noticed something. Bianca, there's one meal short. Is this a mistake? Shall I call? When I said that, Bianca, with a mean smile, said this. "It's not a mistake. I never prepared a portion for you." I was stunned, never expecting to be treated like this. "After all, today people are gathering, and you, my son's wife, won't have time to eat. How shameless." Feeling like I had been called a greedy person, I finally felt indignant. Maybe because I didn't talk back, she felt good and said, "A housekeeper like you is good enough for dog food. Come on, say bow." Then she put the dog food left over from the dog they used to have in the parents-in-law's home in front of me. At that humiliating act, I couldn't help but laugh. I would never understand this woman, not in a lifetime, because she must be an alien or something. I have no intention of talking to someone with whom I can't communicate. Thinking that, I shouted at Bianca in a language I didn't know, pretending to speak alien. And for a moment, Bianca's face showed a hint of fear at my sudden behavior. "What? Are you out of your mind? Are you mocking me?" "Yes, I guess so. I've been putting up with it for quite some time now. I don't like living in a house with someone as nasty as you. I don't know what you're upset about, but will you be satisfied if we get a divorce?" I won't allow a divorce. Then I'd have to hire another housekeeper. That would be a waste of money. With that, Bianca came at me, trying to grab me.
"Stop it! How disgraceful!"
Turning around, there stood Carmine and my father-in-law, Stanley, along with Stanley's brother and his wife, who lived far away. Bianca hadn't noticed them because of our argument, but it was already time for Carmine and the others to arrive. I don't know how long they had been watching, but Bianca became completely subdued, perhaps because Stanley intervened or from the shock. Then it was time for the priest to come to the house. The memorial service ended modestly, and it was time to eat, but grandmother-in-law stayed in her room, saying she wasn't feeling well.
"I haven't eaten this in a while, but the steak here is really good."
While Stanley said that, I was bustling around, bringing drinks and such.
"Allison, come eat too. You don't need to do all this."
"Thank you. Come over here." My aunt-in-law Cindy also called out kindly. "Thank you, but it seems there is no steak for me." I pretended to be dejected as I said that, and when Cindy asked, why?" I replied, "I can't possibly say it. Please ask Bianca." Cindy glared at Bianca, who might have been frightened by her gaze, and started saying something ridiculous. "Oh, I ordered the wrong number of steaks. I told Allison to eat my portion, but she declined, saying she was fine. I'm so lucky to have such a nice woman marry into the family." Bianca was sweating profusely, and her eyes were darting around. "Is that so?" Cindy looked at me worriedly. "Yes, that's right." Behind Cindy, I could see Bianca's face completely at ease. That face was so comical, I struggled to keep from laughing. Bianca is always so kind. She points out when I'm lacking social manners. Today, instead of steak, she prepared this for me. I said that and brought out the dog food Bianca had handed me from the kitchen. Bianca turned pale at my unexpected action.
"What's going on? What have you done to my precious wife?"
Carmine asked, but Bianca remained silent. In the quiet room, Stanley spoke up.
"Well, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? Allison is married now, so—"
Stanley started joking, and Carmine looked like he was about to grab him. Thinking it better to avoid an assault charge, I decided to call my ace in the hole. "Susan?" Everyone was surprised by my loud call. Then, from the back room, a cheerful voice replied, "Yes?" Out came Susan, grandmother-in-law. It turns out she's the Susan from pottery school. The day Bianca first called me over, we were both shocked to see each other. Never imagining that the grandmother-in-law would be Susan, we finished the housework at the parents-in-law's home together laughing. The parents-in-law's home is a two-family house, and Susan's living space was very tidy. It was obvious that she wasn't sick, but Bianca never suspected. Since Bianca returned home late at night, we went out to eat and for walks. I enjoyed the time spent with my beloved Susan, which is why I was happy to visit the parents-in-law's home. Susan had made me promise not to tell the in-laws about our relationship. I was angry at Bianca's unreasonable words, but knowing it would end someday, I could bear it. Susan didn't attend the memorial service because she didn't want to see the parents-in-law's faces. Susan always prayed for grandfather-in-law's happiness after his death.
Why? Mom, don't you have Alzheimer's?
Stanley asked, puzzled. That's just something this woman misunderstood on her own. With that, Bianca, who had been shrinking herself, was glared at. I wanted to live alone with my husband, but right after getting married, you started living with us for the sake of he's your son, and you and your husband indulged in luxury with the money saved from rent. Susan said this, and Stanley looked uncomfortable. I thought I'd be free when your transfer was decided, but then this woman said she would stay here, and it was the worst. I couldn't even talk about kicking her out because you were never home. And I pretended to be hard of hearing because I didn't want to talk to you. And then you just assumed I had Alzheimer's. It's laughable. Bianca's face turned bright red. What I couldn't forgive the most was being treated as absent from the grandchildren's celebrations. Well, I was very happy when I found out Allison, whom I'd get along with, was the spouse of my grandchildren. Susan said that and smiled at me. Bianca, not finding this amusing, suddenly started. I'm sorry. Allison was always so cold to me. I was frustrated, and that's why I did such a prank today. I truly regret it. But if Allison had been kinder from the start, then I wouldn't have been too... I had no intention of playing along with such a charade. All the precious words you've given me up until now, Bianca, I thought I'd listen to them at home, too. I said that and pulled out a voice recorder I had hidden in my pocket. With each playback, Bianca's face grew paler, and the faces around us grew more severe. Susan and I had planned to expose everything on this day when the relatives gathered, regardless of the steak incident. After listening, Cindy started to laugh. You talk about social common sense, but you've never worked a day in your life. Apparently, Bianca had never worked and had lived a life of leisure. After the children grew up, Bianca began to go out more, causing constant arguments with Stanley. Stanley himself was apparently a habitual adulterer who returned home late every night, participating in school events for the sake of public image, but otherwise maintaining a fake relationship, as I had heard from Carmine. Carmine also hated it and left home as soon as he graduated from high school. That's why, pack your bags and leave right now. This is the precious home of my deceased husband and me. I will never allow you to return, and you too. Susan said this and glared at Stanley. You have another woman out there, don't you? Do as you please, trash son. I'm cutting ties with you. Stanley left the house as if fleeing, perhaps hit too close to home. And Carmine, I know you're busy with work, but come and visit once in a while. I understand if you don't want to, given such foolish parents. Susan said this to Carmine with a slightly sad look. Then we're heading home. As Carmine and I left the house, Bianca, looking furious, chased after me. Wait, clear up this misunderstanding. If I'm thrown out of here, I'll be in trouble. I thought if that was the case, she shouldn't have harassed me to begin with, but it's too late for her words now. I don't understand. Why don't you work? You seem to have a great understanding of how to be a respectful member of society, I said sarcastically and got into the car. She was shouting something outside, but I didn't care. She might as well regret the life she's led as she pleases. As for the former parents-in-law, after being kicked out of the parents-in-law's home, Bianca showed up at Stanley's place where he was working alone. But as Susan predicted, Stanley was already living with his mistress, and Bianca was quickly discarded. Furthermore, it turned out that Bianca had also been having an affair, and even worse, with a married man, and she was sued for damages by his wife. Since both our former parents-in-law had been unfaithful, the damages were sort of offset, but Bianca would likely continue to pay the mistress's husband. Stanley might lessen his burden if he sought damages from his mistress, but to me, they are strangers, and it doesn't matter anymore. They were a match in a way, despite the fake relationship I had heard about. Carmine has no lingering feelings for his former parents and intends never to see them again. I feel the same. As for us, we've decided to live in the parents-in-law's home where Susan lives. The house, once full of unpleasant memories, was transformed as we disposed of all the furniture Bianca had collected, and made significant changes to the interior, making it feel like a completely different home. Susan is surprisingly energetic for her age, but I'm more than willing to take care of her if she ever needs it. Furthermore, next year our family will be growing. I'm looking forward to living a happy life with my beloved family from now on.
You're saying you can't go on the trip I planned. If you don't come, you're no longer family. It's common sense since you married my son, isn't it?
That's what Effie, my mother-in-law, said to me, seeking agreement from Cody. I stopped Cody, who seemed like he wanted to say something, and agreed to her proposal.
Goodness, marrying someone so naive to the world is such a hassle. As long as you understand, if you don't come, it's divorce. I'll re-educate you from now on.
I was sick of her ridiculous remarks. Little did I know, this would be the last trip with my in-laws. I'm Liliana, 32 years old. I run an app development company. It's still a small company, but I love my work, and every day is a joy. My husband Cody is 37, 5 years older than me, and works at a bank. Both of us are passionate about our work, and we can talk about it for hours, often until morning. Cody is very understanding of my work, and we share household chores. We love our work so much that even after 4 years of marriage, we don't have kids. But we both like children and hope to have them someday. My family runs an auto parts factory. Founded by my dad, it's now run by my brother. Thanks to them, I have the freedom to pursue my dream of starting my app company. Even though our industries differ, I often consult with my brother and dad, who are also business owners. They are always supportive, making my family a huge pillar in my life. Cody's family runs a small factory. Being an only child, Cody was expected to take over, but he refused and chose baking instead. There were good reasons for this decision. Firstly, the factory wasn't doing well, and father-in-law, Andy, was actually considering closing the company with his generation. Honestly, running a small factory is tough nowadays. As a child, Cody often heard Andy talking with bank employees over the phone. Once, he met a very kind and cool banker during a visit to the factory and started accompanying Andy to the bank for meetings just to meet him. Eventually, Cody aspired to be a banker, studied hard, and now works at a major bank. He studied hard for that dream and eventually joined a major bank where he is now. Our marriage seems fine on the surface, but it's actually not going well. Effie doesn't think highly of my job. Since I can work remotely, there are days I work from home. She sees it as a frivolous job and doesn't understand it at all. I get it. For an older generation like our parents, my job is hard to grasp. It's not a physically demanding job, but it's still work, and it can be exhausting. I always adjust my work schedule around the in-laws' plans, so I never inconvenience them. I don't insist on them understanding, but it's frustrating when they think remote work is easy just because I have a flexible schedule. There are other things Effie disapproves of about us. We built our house when we got married, located about halfway between our parents' homes. Despite taking different routes, it takes less than 30 minutes to reach either house. As a dual-income couple, we manage our spending and savings separately. We value our independence and privacy, even as a couple. We contribute a fixed amount for living expenses every month, save the rest for the house, and manage our own money otherwise. Effie disapproves of this lifestyle too. She thinks it's wrong for a couple to talk about privacy. According to her, It's odd for family members to have secrets, and she doesn't consider them a true family. I think because Effie doesn't like me, she finds fault in everything I do. She adores her son Cody, so I'm just a nuisance to her. Every time we meet, she makes snide remarks about us not having children yet. It's something I'm sensitive about, and I'd rather not be reminded. Childbearing is a delicate topic, and usually it's polite to avoid it, but Effie brings it up every time, so I've started to avoid her. To not worry Cody, I've been staying late at work on purpose to avoid meeting her. Effie has done many other surprising things, but there was one incident I couldn't forgive. It happened on the day of my best friend's wedding. After her wedding, my friend was moving abroad. We wouldn't be able to meet as often since we both work. I was really looking forward to celebrating her big day. However, a week before the wedding, Andy came to me with a request. He had an important business reception and wanted me there. I naturally refused. The only thing more important than my friend's wedding would be a parent on their deathbed. That night, something unexpected happened. When I got home from work, my in-laws were at our house. As soon as she saw me, Effie confronted me angrily.
Liliana, what are you thinking? Refusing Andy's request is outrageous. You're my son's wife. It's only natural to prioritize family obligations. Your refusal is unacceptable. You need to rethink your priorities.
She yelled at me. Cody was there too, but he said nothing. After asking, I found out the reception was critical for the future of the company. But to me, my best friend's wedding was just as important. I told Effie that. I understand what you both are saying, but my best friend's wedding is an important event for me, and I don't want to miss it. Besides, I'm not even an employee of Andy's company. As I said this, even Cody chimed in.
Can't you make an exception this time? This is really about the survival of the company. I'm going too, and it's a family effort. We can make it up to you for missing the wedding. It's a family crisis. Can't you help us?
I was shocked. I never thought Cody would say such a thing. He knew how much I was looking forward to the wedding. Then, Andy spoke.
I understand Liliana's point, but this time we really need your help.
The atmosphere made it hard for me to refuse. It wasn't just any reception. In the end, I reluctantly agreed to skip my best friend's wedding. I told my friend the truth and explained why I couldn't come. Given that I had previously talked to my best friend about my family situation, she understood my predicament. In fact, she was more concerned about me. I'm fortunate to have such a kind friend. I felt guilty for missing her big day, but once the decision was made, I had to focus on making the reception a success. On the day of the event, Cody and I arrived at the venue early and tried to contact Effie. However, for some reason, Effie didn't answer her phone. As I worried about what to do, the in-laws finally arrived at the venue just 10 minutes before it was set to start. To my surprise, they were in a disheveled state, with messy hair and their suits and shirts all wrinkled. I was shocked and asked Effie, "What happened? What's with your shirt? Today is an important reception, right?" She awkwardly responded, "I just overslept, Liliana. Make sure you're not rude." I was so close to snapping back with, "I don't want to hear that from you," but somehow I managed to hold back. I really want to give myself credit for keeping my composure. During the reception, Effie, not knowing how to converse properly, made a series of rude comments to our guests. It seemed she meant them as jokes, but their strained smiles made it clear they weren't received well. As expected, we didn't secure the contract, and the reception ended without success. I thought to myself that it was to be expected. If I had known it would be like this, I would have preferred to go to my best friend's wedding. I was infuriated at being dragged into such a disastrous reception, ruining my plans and causing issues with the in-laws. To my dismay, they didn't acknowledge any wrongdoing. According to them,
"After such a lavish reception with no contract, it's almost like dealing with con artists.
Good thing we didn't make a deal with such strange people.
I was speechless with astonishment. How can they be so blissfully unaware? After this incident, I became even more uncomfortable with my in-laws and started avoiding them. But unfortunately, there's something I can't avoid. Cody's family has a tradition of going on a family trip every year since his childhood, and it has continued even after we got married. Since our marriage, I've been expected to join these trips, but I'm always stuck with the chores and driving. Arranging hotels, booking meals, researching tourist spots, all these tedious tasks are my responsibility. And if I dare to voice my opinion, I'm immediately shut down with a, "Don't overstep." Even when we visit tourist spots, I'm often left to stay in the room, never getting to visit places I like. Honestly, I dread these annual family trips and always hope I might fall ill on the day. Now, this year's trip season has arrived. Despite their claims of being financially tight, my in-laws insist on a lavish trip. As usual, I was tasked with finding the hotel. I plan meticulously to keep Effie, who's always complaining, in a good mood. Since I'm the only one who doesn't drink, I'm the default driver, but I don't mind as it spares me from their conversations. However, a crisis occurred. Just before the trip, I received news that my mom had collapsed and was in critical condition. In such a situation, going on a trip, even a short one, was out of the question. I lost my composure, thinking I needed to see my mom as soon as possible. It was the day before the trip, so I decided to cancel and started preparing to go to the hospital. Cody offered to come to the hospital with me, but I refused. I felt like he was implying my mom wouldn't make it, which I didn't want to hear. When Cody and I went to tell Effie we couldn't join the trip, she exploded in anger.
"You're saying you can't go on the trip I planned. If you don't come, you're no longer family. As my son's wife, it's common sense to prioritize the family trip, right? Right, Cody?"
Effie said this, seeking agreement from Cody. Effie interrupted Cody, who looked like he wanted to say something, as if to say she wouldn't entertain any opposing opinions. In that situation, I was so dumbfounded that I couldn't find the words to speak. Nothing could be more important than being with my mom in her critical condition. Just as I was about to respond, my brother called. It seems Mom's condition is serious, but a bit stable. I expressed my desire to rush to her, but he said visiting isn't possible right now due to a contagious disease outbreak. He mentioned that if she recovers, we could arrange a short visit later, so there was no point in coming immediately. Hearing this, I hesitated about what to do. Noticing my indecision, my brother asked what was wrong. I honestly explained the situation about the trip and my current dilemma. My brother, a bit angry, made a good suggestion. I hadn't thought of it in my distress, but the trip destination was near my parents' home. He assured me that I could quickly get to my family's house from the hotel if needed, and there shouldn't be any problem. Indeed, that's true. If I can't visit the hospital, staying at home or at the hotel doesn't make much difference. Accepting my brother's suggestion, I told Effie. "All right, I'll go on the trip." Effie responded,
"Goodness! If you had said that from the start, I wouldn't have had to get angry. It's hard to marry someone so naive. As long as you understand, if you don't come, it's divorce. Honestly, I'll have to re-educate you from now on."
Cody looked surprised, but we agreed to go on the condition that I could leave for the hospital if needed. Effie remarked,
"It would be trouble if our driver suddenly disappeared, right? Oh good, you're part of this family now, so our needs come first. Remember your role as my son's wife. This is a major event. The family trip should be your top priority."
Her triumphant attitude and obvious excitement really irked me. But to avoid further trouble, I decided to endure it. On the day of the trip, I was so worried about Mom that I couldn't put down my phone. Yet Effie was drinking beer from the morning. The back seat of my car, which I was driving, turned into a party scene. I was surprised to see Cody joining in the drinking. However, this was a trip for which everyone had rearranged their schedules,
I told myself that it would be nice if everyone could enjoy the trip, since we had all made the effort to come. During the trip, Effie's whims were relentless. Demands to stop for the bathroom immediately, or to go to the grocery store for more alcohol. I felt like a servant. But I was prepared to endure such things. That's when my mobile phone rang. It was a call from my brother, thankfully informing me that Mom had survived. Her condition had stabilized and she had regained consciousness. The diagnosis was subarachnoid hemorrhage. However, I couldn't be completely at ease yet. There were concerns about potential after effects. It was reassuring to have my brother keeping me updated as I was feeling anxious. When I shared the news of Mom's recovery with my in-laws, Effie commented, "If she's better, there's no need to bother us with such news. You're making a big deal out of nothing." And then Andy added, "Exactly. No need to spoil our trip with such grim news. We're supposed to be enjoying ourselves." I was disgusted that Andy shared Effie's view and didn't want to think of these people as my family. During the trip, they made a ruckus in the hotel, drinking and partying, which was truly embarrassing. This incident deepened my distrust of my in-laws. Thankfully, Mom's condition remained stable, and there was no need to rush to the hospital, allowing us to complete the trip and return home. I was relieved. While I was sorting out the laundry, Effie came to our house. Wondering what it could be this time, she said, "You have a dryer at your house, right? We don't have one, so let me use it," and showed up with loads of laundry. I was exasperated and replied, "There's a laundromat with dryers. I have a laundry of my own, and I'm using it right now, so it's not possible." To which she retorted, "Always so stingy. Once you're done, it's fine. I'll come to pick it up tomorrow. Leave it finished by then," and attempted to leave her laundry in our washroom. Cody stepped in. "Go to a laundromat. Liliana is tired, and she has to work tomorrow. It's not possible." Effie got angry, feeling her son was defending me. She left in a hurry, spewing insults and slamming the door, leaving the laundry behind. In hindsight, if things had been different that day, maybe the course of events would have changed. Later, Effie returned and said, "During the trip, I realized something, Liliana. You lacked the awareness of being married to Cody. We might face similar situations in the future. Since we couldn't discuss it, I've decided that Liliana should make a decision." She put a family contract and divorce papers on the table. I was speechless. What even is a family contract? It was ridiculous and confirmed my belief that she can't have a normal conversation. The saving grace was Cody's reaction. He said, "I have something to say. If you keep imposing your biased views on us, I'll cut ties. I can't deal with this anymore. What do you think Liliana is? She's not your servant or housekeeper. You're the one who's mistaken about your position." Effie was stunned. Until now, Cody had hardly ever opposed anything. It wasn't because he agreed with Effie's ideas, but rather he kept quiet to avoid the hassle. Following Cody's words, Effie's anger turned towards me. "You've changed Cody since marrying him. He used to be so sweet. It's crazy for him to talk to me like that. You must have brainwashed him. Turn him back to the old Cody," she accused, confronting me. She believed I had brainwashed Cody into defying her. Then Cody spoke up for me. "The one doing the brainwashing is you, right? Always going on a rampage without listening to anyone's opinion? Frankly, you're a toxic parent. You never let me do what I wanted to. After getting married, instead of calming down, you started spewing your venom at Liliana. Enough is enough. I'm not going to divorce, and if you have a problem, you should stay out of our lives," Cody said. Hearing this, Effie turned to Andy, who was with her, and burst into tears. Andy responded, "If that's what Cody thinks, then fine. We'll cut ties. Do whatever you want," and stormed out. I was surprised but happy that Cody stood up for us like that. Feeling frustrated, I told my brother about this. He became furious. Saying he couldn't stay silent if they were acting this way, he decided to take action. It led to a tragedy in the in-laws family. Turns out my brother's company was a client of my in-laws' company. We had kept our family's company name a secret to avoid creating a power imbalance. The in-laws had no idea they were dealing with my family's company. But with things as they were, we couldn't continue like this. Though I had been patient, avoiding mixing business and personal matters, it had reached its limit. My brother had been having issues with them not meeting deadlines. You can't cherish those who don't cherish you. I discussed it with Cody before talking to the in-laws, and he agreed. Cody also said he had had enough. My brother ended the contract with the in-laws company. It was a business decision. They had been a problematic company, not paying on time and missing deadlines, but we had tolerated it because it was Cody's family's business. But there was no longer a need for that. Later, when my in-laws found out about this, they came to us in tears. Now they're constantly apologizing. They pleaded with my brother to reconsider the contract, but of course that was impossible. It was their responsibility for not meeting deadlines. They should have been grateful for our patience. Cody explained everything to his parents, but they refused to accept it and ended up cutting ties in a rage. Cody wasn't sad, he felt relieved. He had been torn and tired, struggling between us and his family. Since then, we've been living peacefully. I learned that Cody had been supporting his family financially, but he stopped that now. The in-laws factory went bankrupt. Even without this incident, it was on the brink of closure, drowning in debt. I heard that Cody had been paying for those annual trips, and it's astonishing how they could behave that way using someone else's money. Now the in-laws are living modestly, and Effie has recently started working. I was honestly surprised to see her, who used to call herself a president's wife, working. One day I saw Effie being scolded while doing a cleaning job. I felt bad for thinking this was karma. She'll learn the harsh realities of society and hopefully straighten. As for us, work is going well. We haven't had children yet, but we enjoy our jobs and life is fulfilling. We are planning an overseas trip for our next vacation. For a while, we're thinking of enjoying life without children.